All right, so the other day I gave a talk, and it was simply about fructose and like what it was and what it does to you, but I don't think I went too far down the rabbit hole of like what foods have fructose in them, why you'd want to potentially steer away from those foods and towards other foods. But I want to be really clear about something. When I talk about nutrition at the whiteboard and I talk about foods, I don't want us to necessarily get in the habit of like thinking of food as like bad or good. Simply, I should have more of this or I should have less of this. Because you all should be able to go to a birthday party and have a slice of cake and some ice cream. Don't be that weirdo. Celebrate your kids' birthdays. Go to anniversary parties. Have those things. Just don't live off of them. That's my main goal here, is to get people to realize that your food is fuel, and we want our fuel to support our exercise, which is just a universal term for our activity level, and not excess body fat. You know, I've had this conversation with people before. You know, we talk about, are you coming to CrossFit consistently? And it's like, yeah, I'm coming in consistently. And I've been here for about, a year. And like, I've gotten fitter, but my body hasn't changed. Where do you think my mind instantly goes? What you're putting in your face. Nutrition, yes. What are you eating, all right? It is impossible to train the way that we train and eat clean and not see results. Sure, there might be that 1 in a million case. It's probably not you. It's me. It's probably not you. And again, the point what I'm saying here is that, yes, there do exist people that struggle to lose weight and have, very consistent attendance, do pretty well with their diet and still don't see the results, but they're the exception, not the rule. So going into this topic today, I want to talk about what fructose does once it enters your body. And for anyone who doesn't know, fructose is 50% of what's in table sugar. So we don't think of sugars as just sugar. Sugar are components of other sugars. We've got glucose, we've got fructose, we've got galactose, we've got a few other different ones, but they come in different chains or different linked patterns together. Table sugar is 50% fructose and 50% glucose. Fructose and glucose, half and half. Other food items like fruits and vegetables typically are between 1 and 10% fructose and then a bunch of other sugars. Things like starches are between 5 and 15% fructose, then a bunch of other sugars. And then we get close to like the processed foods, the things I want you to avoid. We're going 40, 45, 50, 55, 60%. When you hear the term high fructose corn syrup, that is a sugar thing that is essentially 55% fructose, which is obviously not common in nature. You can't dig high fructose corn syrup out of the earth. You can't harvest it out of the earth. You have to make it in a lab. It is an unnatural product that our body's not used to. Now, what happens when we consume too much fructose is a bunch of downstream effects that actually initially allowed us to exist as a species. So sometime, I don't know the exact date, so don't hold me on this, but in our history as primates, we went through a period of when food was scarce, and we lost something called a uricase mutation in our liver. Now, that is beneficial for us when food is scarce because it allows us to store fat. Having the uricase mutation allows us to take food in and store fat. It's also what allows bears who hibernate to put on hundreds of excess pounds so they can survive hibernation. It works awesome if food is scarce. We don't live in that environment. We can go over there about, what's it, a quarter mile, Matt, so? 800 meters? You wouldn't know, right? A little less. Well, how many feet's a donut aisle? 735. We live close enough to things like that, and those foods are cheap and inexpensive to the point where they're really easy to access, and we don't live in an environment that needs the ability to store excess body weight. In fact, most of us would like to have a lot less of it. But the problem here is fructose kicks off a cascade of processes in your body that release things like uric acid, which further damages the body. So when you take in something that has a high fructose content, fructose is digested and processed in the liver. So you take in, let's just say, Cocoa Puffs. Those probably have a decent amount of high fructose corn syrup in them. You take those in, and all of a sudden, inside your liver, you have increased phosphorylation in your cells. Now, that might not mean anything to you, that's okay. Excuse me, not increase, decrease. That might not mean anything to you right now, but what that does is it sets off a cascade of other effects that affect enzymes in your liver, which help produce higher levels of uric acid. Now, there is a doctor, the Dr. Richard Johnson, that I was talking about last time we had this conversation, who theorized that the problem with our diet isn't necessarily just sugar, but fructose, because of what it does to you in creating unregulated AMPK and uric acid. And then again, the uric acid affects other systems within your body that causes further positive feedback loops, which basically means it continues to make things worse and worse and worse as a result of eating too much fructose. So as a result of creating uric acid in your liver, which is a byproduct of having too much fructose, that uric acid then goes out into your circulation. Some concerns with that. First, it can go into your pancreatic cells, your islet cells, and it can create inflammation, which can cause insulin deficiency. Basically, you cannot make the insulin your body needs to get the sugar out of your bloodstream and into your cells. It can also go to your adipocytes, which are these cells that tell your body when it's time to either absorb nutrients and store them as fat, or if you have excess, to release, or if you have a deficit where you need energy, to break down fat tissue so that that fat is used for fuel the way it is supposed to be used. You also have endothelial dysfunction. So, one of the common issues is like, why do people get hypertension? Well, we're supposed to have this vascular system that expands and contracts as we need to get blood to certain places. But as we get more and more damage to these tissues, they don't work the way they're supposed to, and they can end up constricting to the point where they cause hypertension or increased blood pressure. We also can see it affect the skeletal muscle. When you have a high concentration of uric acid and you're flowing through your veins, your skeletal muscle becomes dysfunctional at uptaking insulin, which allows the sugar in your bloodstream to go from your bloodstream into your muscle cells where they're supposed to fuel said muscle cells. So all of a sudden you are less able to take sugar from your diet and put it into your tissues the way it's supposed to work to fuel said tissues. And then furthermore, they have found that higher elevated levels of uric acid is also correlated with damage to your bones and connective tissue. So things like arthritis can be a big common complaint of people who have high uric acid levels. Increased blood pressure, what we already talked about. Increased triglycerides, because one of the products of having high levels of fructose in your diet is that your liver will respond by making excess fatty acids, which then goes into your bloodstreams and gives you essentially non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, but also high triglycerides. Diabetes, again, we're talking about how insulin's not working, and how insulin's no longer absorbed. Gout, kidney stones, heart disease, talked about the endothelial cells not working, the heart not working its way it's supposed to. Kidney disease, so against these renal issues like your glomerular heads stop working the way they're supposed to and filtering the blood, essentially just causes a further downstream effect. And then last but not least, all of these things compound. The high blood pressure, the high triglycerides, the hypertension, all these things into what's something called metabolic syndrome, which basically means you have all these things going wrong and nothing's going good. So, how do we fix this? What is the solution? I don't want you guys to think you, again, cannot have a slice of birthday cake at a birthday party. But realize if you have a lot of your diet that comes from the processed food land, the center of the grocery store, you are going to be consuming a higher percentage of your diet from fructose, which then can lead you down this path. Is it going to happen from one meal? Absolutely not. But it's the consistent decision to make the cheap, easy, fast option ahead of taking the time to food prep and eat real food that causes these problems to happen and takes us further and further away from doing what's up on that poster for 100 Words of Fitness, which is to eat food that supports our exercise, meaning our activity, but not body fat. Do you guys have any questions? Yes, Derek?
Would this be visible like in a blood lab to see elevated levels of sugar?
What they would look for, you could get your HbA1c tested to see how you've been doing with your blood sugar, but more often than not, they'd be testing your uric acid levels in your blood. That would be a test you get. It's not a common test. I don't think you would go there and get that in your blood panel. I haven't gotten a blood panel in a really long time, but I don't think that's a normal one you would get. Unless you have something like gout. If you got gout and you get blood work, they're gonna tell you if you have high uric acid or not. But that's, people usually wait until they have kidney stones or gout to look for uric acid.
Right, because elevated blood pressure.
That could be anything, right? Yeah. In the eyes of the doctor, that could be anything. No offense, Felicia, you are a doctor, but not that kind of doctor I'm talking about.
So when
Yes, Dave.
you're perusing the grocery store and reading labels, and you flip it over, and there is
is some added sugar, what's a level to stay away from? Or what's a level that is...
You're going to hate when I say this, but I mean,
Almost everything has it.
personally, I would just try to get 0 added sugar. You know, if again, we're talking about what the person's goals are. Is 0 added sugar realistic for most people? Probably not. But if you're concerned about it, measuring how much you're getting is a great place to start. That way you realize, like, you know, if you go and look at like medical research, it's gonna be like between 28 and 35 grams of added sugar a day, and then you read who said that. And it's the American Diabetic Association, who's directly funded by big agriculture. So of course they have a vested interest in not saying that no sugar is good for you. But also, that's not a realistic thing for most people, because most people don't have gardens, they don't harvest their food themselves, they get a turkey club. Turkey club, they got the bread. The bread's got a little bit of carbs in it. They got the sauces on it to make turkey club taste good. So it's not dry chicken or dry turkey. You know, these things are, I don't want anyone to get in the universal like yes or no, good or bad, but it's to realize that like the more stuff that comes from the center of the grocery store, the more things that have food labels on it, you see added sugar, the more of this you're getting into your body. And again, a little bit's not going to do a ton of damage, but a lot of it consistently is where we have the problems. I don't know if that answered your question, but...
I don't have enough time here, so I'm going to grab that package of instant oatmeal, but that has added sugar where the other stuff that's going to make you...
Well, actually, I had this conversation with Felicia based on a conversation we had about her diet. And, you know, there's a common thing like, you know, I'm too busy, I don't have enough time. And there's a really, really cool, super old CrossFit Journal article from like 2002 where Greg, this guy that started CrossFit, had 2 groups of 2. He sent one group of 2 over to Dairy Queen. He sent one group at the grocery store, and they're about equidistant apart. He goes, I want to know how long it took you to buy your lunch, and I want to know how much it cost. Both groups come back. Group from Dairy Queen spent, I don't know, forgive me, this is like 2002, like $6. And it took them 17 and a half minutes. The group that went to the grocery store spent like 16 minutes and spent $5. So like, does it take some planning to make it happen? Sure, but it's a little bit easier than you think. And I know that technology is not everyone's friend, but when Felicia and I were talking about this, I'm like, you could literally open up a phone app that's called ChatGPT and say, I'm going to the grocery store. Tell me how I can get something that's high protein, high fat, and low carb without cooking anything, and it will spit out. Buy 6 ounces of turkey breast, buy 2 ounces of almonds, get 2 apples, and there's your meal. So like, it does take a little bit of thought to get through, but you can go to the grocery store. You even go to a gas station. You go to a gas station, you get a couple hard-boiled eggs, they got a piece of fruit there usually, and buy one of those travel packs of almonds. You get a really complete meal there. Now, do I want you to eat that for every meal? No, but like, that's a really good workaround if you're, busy, which is usually the reason why people make bad food choices. It's out of convenience and out of timing. I don't have time to do this today. And, I could leave here right now, go to that grocery store, I think I'd be back in less than 12 minutes with a meal that would fill me up from this workout, make me feel good, and not have any sort of negative hangover effects that would last because I ate a bad food choice. Any other questions? This is not for right now, but if you ever have any other topics you're interested in, like I'm always looking for ideas. If I don't know the answer, I'll probably say give me some time to think, look it up and figure it out. But I want to do more of these. So I hope you guys find these informative. And anyone that didn't catch all of that, I am going to post this via email and via Facebook and whatnot. So thanks for hanging out, guys. Hope you had a good workout, and I'll see you next time.